Hey, Cheryl, thank you for joining us. And if you could just introduce yourself and the work you do for a moment, that'd be great. And then I have some questions for you about grief and loss that we'd like to share with teachers and parents too.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Ron. So, my name is Cheryl Lagergren, and I'm a licensed clinical therapist. I am currently working within Essentia and doing specifically working with families on grief and loss.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share some thoughts with us. In general, what do you want parents and teachers and people just to know about grief and loss and maybe bereavement?
Absolutely. So, when I think about grief and loss, the one thing that I tell people immediately upon meeting them is understanding that no two people grieve the same. And that includes, extending into families. I often get asked by parents, why is my child not, showing some sadness, or why is my child angry all of the time? And I think part of it is their process is very differently. I mean, there's the developmental piece of it. However, we're not alike. We're all very different. And so the importance of not being judgmental on yourself, being judgmental towards others, that we experience a wide array of emotions, and understanding that they're not right or wrong. We
Hmm.
need all of them in grief. Another point that I make sure I communicate to families is there are no stages to grief. That does not exist. We know that there's a definitive beginning point to grief and loss. There is no end point. So it's a process over time, and it's not necessarily like this I'm moving forward all the time, and if I move backward that means I'm doing something wrong. It's a general oscillation, kind of this back and forth, really kind of fluid moment or movement through your grief. So those are a couple of points. And then when I think about looking specifically with children developmentally, it's really important for parents just to lean in and meet your child where they are at. And that's the same for staff. So it's we can just in general, as a parent myself, I think about um I have certain expectations for my children, and if I feel like they're not meeting them, I feel like something is wrong. Well, that is not the case. It is we have to allow our children to feel whatever it is that they're feeling, to experience what they need to experience, and we're just there to kind of help guide them, just being with them where they're at in that moment. And
Hmm.
then the final kind of point for me is finding a balance in our grief and loss, like in life with everything. So being able to set intention to being in your grief, sitting with your grief, which is a very painful process, and also kind of finding that time where I need to give myself a little brief vacation from my grief and loss, and knowing that that is okay.
Sure. Yeah, I've heard that the research tells us that folks that can allow themselves to experience the feelings typically feel a little better a little sooner.
Mhm.
Um, is there anything else that's particularly helpful when supporting maybe elementary age kids for parents and teachers to know?
Oh, absolutely. So when I think of like the top of the list conversation that I have across the board with parents, um, running a littles group, grief group, I talk about the importance of listening, validating, sticking to a routine is really important, and really just providing our child with some reassurance. Another area that we talk about is when discussing death with a child who's of elementary age, it's important to be really direct and concrete because we know they're real literal thinkers. So, for
Mm.
example, I say try not to use words like, oh, Nana went to sleep, because now we have a little, 7, 8, 9-year-old brain going, am I going to not wake up if I fall asleep? And so it kind of instills this nervous kind of fear in our children. And so being really clear about, and of course, I wanted to say at a parent's discretion and a staff's discretion, the details, that you would want to share with a child. But being really clear that no, so and so has died. They were not feeling well. They were sick. Different things like that, rather than, well, they're, a literal kind of non-literal meaning is like they're up in heaven now, or they went to sleep, and children aren't able to process that, of putting that in terms of, oh, they're not coming back.
Sure.
So it kind of leaves this uncertainty. I know I've said already, but it's so important of meeting our children where they're at, because it's their process, and they just need to know from a parent or a staff that it's okay no matter what I'm doing or what I'm saying or how I'm acting, that I'm not being this bad kid because I'm angry and I'm throwing things around the room, because that, in that moment, for that child, is them expressing this feeling of, I'm really upset that, mom or dad or, sibling or, what a relative has died that I was really close to. And so it's just their way of expressing, because we know kids don't always have words. And so it comes out in different ways for them. And so for that importance for parents to just be with their child, reassure them, know that they're loved, they're in a safe place, I think is really important. The other thing I talk with families about too is, don't hide your emotions in front of your children. It is okay. Parents get really nervous and apprehensive of, like, crying from my child all the time. And you're human. You miss the person who has died. And these are really great opportunities for families to sit and share what they're feeling with each other. That's what creates that safe environment for little ones, especially. When they see that, someone in their family is hiding emotions, they internalize that and then begin to think, well, am I supposed to show my emotion? Maybe I'm not supposed to show my emotion. And so then we're having, this environment where nobody is talking and nothing's being processed. And then we start to see kids act out in other ways that might not be very, very helpful to them or very effective.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, one more thing, sorry. And
No.
sharing stories. That's like, I can't believe I almost forgot that. Sharing stories is such a big thing for families, because they're worried, like, well, what if I talk too much about, the person in our life who has died? And I'm like, no, this is the opportunity, like talking about them, sharing stories, looking at pictures together as a family. Those things are really important, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. That's great information for us. Sometimes parents and teachers or staff are trying to support each other too.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about adults supporting each other and helping each other out?
Absolutely. So when I think about, and we're in such obviously a unique time right now, but nonetheless, I think about the importance of staff reaching out to family members, initially, letting them know that they're aware of the loss, that, staff are here for them in whatever way that they are needing, whether that's just, like a daily phone call or a daily email kind of check in. That those lines of communication, as you well know, Ron, are so extremely important just in general, but just intensify during moments of, grief and loss. So I think that's extremely important. When I think about just within like the school culture and staff, I cannot stress the importance of encouraging each other to talk, letting each other know that they're all here for one another. We tend not to think about self-care in moments of crises,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, well researched that we know if we're not getting good sleep, if we're not eating, if we're not moving our bodies around a little bit, that really affects not just our emotional well-being, but obviously our physical well-being too. So it's just checking in with each other, making sure that everybody's kind of doing some things for themselves, taking care of themselves, things like that. So just checking in with each other pretty consistently is the best advice that I have.
Yeah, that's awesome. How do folks know if they need more help? We shared a lot of good ideas and strategies, but sometimes folks need more help. How do people know? What are we looking for?
Absolutely. So not everybody who's going to experience the death of a loved one is going to need additional support. So when I'm kind of honing in on elementary age kids, what I tell staff and families are, there's not always outward signs, but these are some things to look for. So sometimes we look at, if we see an extended period of time where kids are withdrawing, they're not engaged in activities that they once did, they're kind of isolating a little bit more away from friends and family in their room. We look at that inability to sleep, loss of appetite, prolonged fear of being alone, acting much younger. So some kids regress, and we tend to see that more kind of preschool age. However, it's always something to kind of keep in the back of your head too, that if you start to see some regression in kids, that might be a sign that more help is needed. Um, some kids will excessively imitate the dead. Now, I'm careful with that one because it's not unusual for kids to imitate or pretend that, Uncle Bob is, here with me and we're on the ground playing. Some of that's actually really helpful and positive for kids to get through that process on their own. And that's just where they are at, again, developmentally. Um, Repeated statements, though, of wanting to be with the dead person, those are some things that, would be kind of a red flag. Withdrawal from friends, and then we look at academics too. So for kids, if we see the sharp drop in their academics, those are some concerning things as well. And when we start to see those things again, that's where staff and family communicate, and then we look at providing resources for whether it be individual therapy, some group counseling, just different professional supports.
Sure. Sure. I've thought about it in terms of with kids and adults, even. So if we're talking about parents and teachers supporting each other too, I mean, all of these things that come along with grief are going to happen. But if they're happening long enough or so severely that we're losing friends,
Right.
we're losing our ability to work, we're losing our ability to learn, and it's really having some significant impact on our grades, not just one assignment, but over the course of a semester or something, then those are signs that even as adults that we might need some more help too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing the information and working, being a partner with Duluth Public Schools. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Ron.